Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this forum organized by Ifremer and the Eurofleets Plus Strategic Working Group. We are going to talk today about European research vessel fleets. These fleets are not new, you know it. Sometimes at the initiative of rich patrons, other times due to the states themselves. Many European countries have developed fleets of research vessels since the last century. These fleets have a long history inscribed in the history of the country whose flag they carry and have a long work separately, sometimes in the same remote areas. Technical coordination initiative appeared in the 1980s, such as the OFEG, but they remain closed clubs for scientists from countries that are not members. A first European project called Eurofleet, financed by the European Community, was born 15 years ago with the ambition to advance towards an integration of these fleets, to open the access of these fleets and to reinforce the capacity to work together and also to carry out technological innovation project in common. This project quickly found its audience and was followed by the Eurofleet 2 project and now the Eurofleet Plus project, which ends in 2023. That's what we are going to talk about today during 1 hour and a half with different guests that will be on the screen right now. Research fleet manager, researchers coming from several European countries, but also from New Zealand. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. We will be talking with you in a few seconds. You will all come to talk about your experience and your vision of what needs to be done in the future to strengthen cooperation and access to European fleets for marine science research. So much for the program. Before we get to the heart of the matter, we are going to take a tour on the sea with you. Eden Fitzgerald, good morning. You will take us on a tour of the European fleets and retrace the various stages that have marked the threatening coordination of national fleets until today. Look at these beautiful pictures, and we will talk just after. Eden.
I grew up by the sea. It defines who I am. For me, it's a wild, limitless space open to discoveries, possibilities, and enjoyment. The ocean enriches everything around us. There's no doubt we face challenges, but when we work together, we can achieve outcomes that will safeguard our future. I'd like to think that the role we play is important for research and decision-making. I suppose you could say we are modern explorers, using the best technology to recognize the changes occurring, to respond to them and to provide key insights. The technology available is allowing us to respond now more efficiently than ever before. For any of us on board the RV Celtic Explorer, crew, scientists, researchers, there's a robust sense of purpose, a multi-purpose research vessel with a duty of care for the ocean. When you set off, there's always a moment where you watch our coastline disappear over the horizon. That's when you realise we should always be moving forward, searching for these answers. These vessels belong to everyone in Ireland, and together we are learning. And with every voyage comes new insights, new discoveries, and new opportunities to advance our understanding and appreciation of the ocean. Exploring our ocean is key to protecting and sustainably managing it to ensure the riches and resources it bestows are there for us all and for our future generations to enjoy.
What beautiful images to start now. Let's talk with you, Eden Fitzgerald. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Let me say that you are now Interim Director, Oceans, Climate and Information Services at the Marine Institute in Ireland, though. Let's go back to the history, if you want, to the Eurofleet project. If we go back to the beginning, what were the objectives of this project?
I guess just to go back a little bit, that the Eurofleets projects came as a result of the long cooperation between the various national fleets starting from 1986. And then there was 3 Eurofleets project funded. We're on the 3rd one at the moment. The first one is an FP7 funded Eurofleets 1 with 19 research vessels and a budget of about €8 million. And then in 2013, there was another FP7 Eurofleets 2, and it expanded again with 22 research vessels involved and funding of €9 million. And then that led to the current Eurofleets project, which is Horizon 2020 funded. It's much larger, with 27 research vessels and a budget of almost 10 million. And that will end in 2023. And as we look to the future, then we hope to develop Eurofleets as a long-term legal entity with a full-time central coordination office. So in terms of the goals and objectives, so the primary objective is to facilitate research vessel access and provide single-point access to more advanced research infrastructures, to give transnational access to researchers in Europe and around the world, as well as open access to data. And then there's an overall aim of having better coordination of the European research vessel fleets, to develop synergies and complementary capabilities, promote greener and sustainable research vessels, and foster innovation through interaction with industry. And then another goal is, if you'd like to go to the next slide.
We're going to go to the next slide.
Another goal is education and training, where we will have education of the next generation of researchers and transfer of knowledge and technology through transfer of staff, and also to promote ocean literacy. So there are the primary objectives. So you can see we've had quite a long history over the last 15 years, and we're now heading towards the end of the third project.
So that's where the objective at the start, but what objective were achieved?
So I guess if you'd like to go on to the next slide, and the next slide, please.
And the next one.
Yeah. So the impact of Eurofleets, we'll call it. So we've had 12 transnational access calls, which is the heart of Eurofleets, and we've had to evaluate over 160 proposals. The total funding through the 3 projects was 29.9 million as a result of the 3 successful proposals. We've funded over 50 cruises right now, with more to come, allowing and enabling over 642 vessel days of access and 87 ROV and AUV access days. So we've got over 800 researchers and students to sea, and I guess over 170 scientists trained.
So that's a lot. And in this context, what is ERVO, E-R-V-O?
So ERVO was, it's an organization that was sort of led to the beginning of Eurofleets. It's an informal sort of European network that has been around for over 23 years. It was created in 1999 as an initiative of the European Science Foundation Marine Board to promote the coordination of smaller and medium-sized research vessels. And it's sort of gone from strength to strength. And it gives an opportunity for research managers and fleet managers throughout Europe to get together, exchange information, and try and do things on a more cooperative basis. So there are over 20 countries now, as you can see, in ERVO. And you can see here 5 of the latest vessels being launched by some of the members of ERVO, including Greenland on the top there, the Faroe Islands, Sweden with the Svea, the Belgica from Belgium, and one at the very bottom, the new Irish vessel, the RV Tom Crean. So very active membership, and been working hard together on a cooperative basis. Yeah.
So cooperation is very important. There was the publication of the European Marine Board Position Paper 25 relating to European RVs, fleets, and ERVO. What is in this publication?
So this publication, the main idea was to review the current status of the European research fleet, look at the progress made from a previous paper and research study that was done in 2007, and assess the role of RVs as part of the wider European ocean observing system. So I guess the findings, which the paper was done in 2019, the findings were that the current European vessel fleet is highly capable to provide excellent support to marine science. There are certainly opportunities for improving efficiency and collaboration. The fleet is aging, with the current average age is about 24 years. And It also recommends a long-term transnational access mechanism for the European fleet.
Thank you very much, Eden Fitzgerald, to be here today, for being here today, and for this landscape and these explanations. And now we will see what is the interest of the transnational access for scientists that you just mentioned. We have 3 testimonies this morning, 3 testimonies, and we are going to start with you. Telmo Morato, hi, good morning. Just turn your mic on.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. You work at the University of the Azores, and you led an Eurofleets Plus funded research cruise, which is called IMAR Cruise, the integrated assessment of the distribution of vulnerable marine ecosystem along the mid-Atlantic ridge in the Azores region. This is very long. And you are going to tell us about this cruise, its goal, and what you achieve. Thank Eurofleets Plus Fund.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I don't know if I can see the slides that I have sent to you.
Go on. We're going to put it online.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, I can start while you set up the slides. So I lead with Marina Carreiro Silva the deep sea research group at University of the Azores, and our challenge is to increase the understanding of the deep sea in the North Atlantic to inform conservation and sustainable use. And how we do this by exploring the underwater features down to 1,000 meters depth. And we set that goal of visiting all seamounts and ridges that we have in the Azores that are shallower than 1,000 meters until 2025. So the problem we have and we face is that deep sea exploration is very expensive. And not many countries, including Portugal and the Azores, not many science teams have access to those type of infrastructures. So next slide. That's why we applied for the Eurofleet Plus ocean call to do an integrated assessment of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and the vulnerable marine ecosystems that live in that area. So the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is the largest mountain chain on the planet. That goes all the way from Iceland to the Antarctic. And in fact, it has been barely explored in terms of scientific expeditions. So we applied to the Eurofleet funds to map the deep sea benthic communities, benthic in the sense of, like, for example, cold water corals, and I see that the video is not playing. So sponges, to evaluate the role of the Mid-Atlantic region shaping the distribution of these species, but with the goal of gathering information to inform sustainable management. So if we go to the next slide, you can see the methodologies that we used during the IMAR cruise. We did some multi-beam bathymetry surveys. We covered, in fact, I think 5,500 square kilometers of new seafloor. Next slide. We used video surveys to sample and characterize the deep sea communities that live attached to the seafloor. And we managed to have or to perform 19 transects with the brilliant NEOS towed camera system and covered a large amount of ground. Next slide. We also deployed CTD and Rosette casts to collect water samples, and water samples are very useful for characterization of water masses and to explore the environmental DNA to explore biodiversity using environmental DNA techniques. And finally, we also deployed some box score to collect sediment samples both for faunal studies, microplastics, and to have a characterization physical chemical properties of the sediments that are on the mid-Atlantic ridge. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So we were able. Next slide. Anyway, we were able to spend 17 days at sea. We had 2,500 kilometers of transit and visited 6 areas. As I mentioned, we mapped over 5,500 kilometers of seafloor. We were able to conduct 19 dives with the NEOS Upper Video System. 54 hours of deep sea images were collected. That represents about 48 kilometers of the seabed that were surveyed. If we go to the next slide, I can start showing some of the highlights of the cruise. So we are still analyzing the data, but we already had a look at at the videos and the imagery data, and we discovered several locations in the Mid-Atlantic ridge that are much shallower than the previous maps that we had access to it. One area, probably 2 areas, reach depths that are susceptible to be fishing, for example, in the Azores with bottom longline, but in other areas with bottom troll. But because they are not known, they may be considered intact. And this makes a tremendous opportunity to know what deep sea ecosystems may look like before they being impacted. So these areas can be considered reference sites and probably priority areas for conservation, but we can talk about this later. But imagine that we find a new mountain in Europe. It's just not possible to find new mountains in terrestrial Europe. But in the deep sea and the ocean, we are still finding new mountains, and it's quite surprising that in 2022 we still don't have all the European seas mapped with multi-beam. So if we go to the next slide, when we analyzed the NEOS towed video systems, we found a very high diversity of benthic communities, including cold water corals and sponges. And when we compare the data that we collected with previous literature, scientific literature, we found that in fact the Mid-Atlantic ridge supports more life and diversity than we previously thought. And we also found that this area of the Mid-Atlantic ridge around the Azores is in fact a hotspot of cold water coral diversity in the whole Atlantic. So this Eurofleet cruise starts to provide a lot of information, not only useful to understand the diversity and the distribution of these species, but also to gather data to inform spatial management of the deep sea. If we move to the next slide, the previous one, please. We discovered interesting aggregations of specific species of cold water corals. And I don't know if you can go to the previous slide, please. Yes, thank you. So we discovered, in fact, the largest aggregations of black corals ever found in the Azores region and probably in the Atlantic. And why it is so important, this discovery? Black corals can live for several thousands of years. One of the colonies that was accidentally caught by some fishermen here in the Azores was dated by our colleagues, and they found that that specific colony was over 3,000 years. So these black corals that form 3-dimensional structures, they can be probably 2 to 3 meters tall. They have lots of species that live associated to it. They are very vulnerable to any type of human impacts. And they can be compared, for example, with the redwood forest that still persists, for example, in the US, in California. And these redwood forests are some of the longest-lived trees that we can find on the planet. So we also have our redwood forest on the deep sea, and this cruise helped us to discover the largest aggregation of these very vulnerable deep sea communities. If we can go to the next slide. Sorry. Another interesting finding is that we found large aggregations of long-lived orange roughy and cardinal fish. These two species are usually fished with bottom trawl in several parts of the ocean, of the world's ocean. But in the Azores, around 2005, the government of the Azores and the European Union decided to impose a trawl ban in this area because they considered to be very sensitive. So, by the fact that this trawl ban was imposed in 2005, it's very good to see these large aggregations of fish and the habitats that support those species. So we kind of have the impression that this trawl ban has been having a positive effect for not only important fish, but also the habitats that they are associated with. Just for curiosity, this orange roughy, they can live for 100 years. The age of first reproduction or maturity is about 30 years, so older than humans. So in summary, if we can go to the next slide, in summary, this Eurofleets funding allowed us to explore unknown areas of the deep sea. It significantly increased our understanding of the mid-Atlantic ridge, although many samples are still being processed. Even the footages, some of the footages that we saw are still being analyzed. It already produced a lot of information that is being, as we speak, used for implementing area-based management tools in this portion of the ridge inside the Azores EEZ. So I want to thank, if we go to the next slide, I want to thank, of course, Eurofleets for providing us the opportunity to go out to the deep ocean and do some exploration of unknown areas, but also NEOS for providing us access to the research vessel Pelagia. Finally, I would like to thank all the crew of our research vessel Pelagia that make this expedition to the largest mountain chain on the planet a great success. Thank you all, and back to you in Brest.
Thank you, Thomas Morato. We see with your presentation how important Eurofleet Plus found is to discover what is in the deep ocean. And we are going now to move from the Azores to another country, and we are going to meet one of your colleagues, Telmo. It is Roland Delfter, an early career RVO technician from Vlies. Hello. I'm sorry for the pronunciation of your name, Roland. So I told you, you were an early RVO technician from Vlies. You took part to the Europlus funded benchmark ROV cruise on the RVGO SARS as part of the Eurofleet Plus Personal Exchange. You were able to follow shared training on the ship, solutions that were not available either. What do you want to share with us today, Ron?
Hello, Jerome. I want to give a little presentation of my training on the Eurofleets Plus benchmark cruise. I am a marine engineer, and I work at the Founders Marine Institute in Ostend, Belgium. We're a very diverse scientific institute with many different divisions, you can see in this picture. And on the next slide, you can see I work at the Marine Robotics Center. which is a center we started at 2018. We develop and deploy marine robotic platforms. We integrate existing systems such as sensors and loggers on these platforms, and we also develop novel techniques of using them and new equipment. I've been working at FLIS since 2019 in a different department, and in early 2021 I moved departments to the Marine Robotics Center, replacing a colleague that left. On the next slide, you can see our platforms, which are very diverse. We have 4 major systems on the water and underwater. In the top center, we have a remotely operated vehicle, which is my responsibility. On the right, we have a glider, and then bottom center is an unmanned surface vessel, and then bottom left, an autonomous underwater vehicle. So as you can see, it's quite diverse, and we are a small team, so everyone has a lot of responsibilities. We can go for the next slide now. Yeah, so because I'm early career with this, in terms of marine robotics, I wanted to kind of jumpstart my learning of these robotic systems. So I applied for Eurofleets Plus work package of training and education that focuses on knowledge transfer and building experience in early career scientists and technicians. And I mean, I wanted to learn everything going from technical aspects to logistics to piloting robots to deploying it. So I was granted this training in August 2021. I went on the benchmark cruise, which is a Eurofleets cruise on the GeoSARS, a Norwegian research vessel, in the Denmark Straits, which, as you can see on the map, is between Greenland and Iceland. And this benchmark cruise is an acronym for benthic habitat mapping in the Denmark Straits, which means looking at the seafloor, at the biological life, basically, of the seafloor. On the next slide, you can see the ROV I was talking about. This is basically a submarine with a remote control submarine. And what we did, so the ROV itself is the Aegir 6000 from Normar, from the University of Bergen. At each station, we always did a CTD cost to characterize the water column. After that, a multi-beam to characterize the sea floor, and then we did the ROV dive. We had 25 dives planned between 300 and 1400 meters of depth. And in the end, we ended up doing 28 dives because everything went so smoothly. The ROV dive was focused mainly on imaging, so on getting high quality images of the seafloor and video, but also collection of samples using manipulators and a suction system. On the right, you can see the whole system, the whole underwater part of the system, right after the dive. And it's a bit hard to see the scale. So the bottom part is also on the left with a person on top. So this is a huge machine. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. So due to being able to follow this experienced crew and this professional and trained ROV staff, it gave me insight in the best practices of operating a system like that and maintaining a system like that. I gained some experience in basic ROV maintenance, in troubleshooting, in piloting and co-piloting. On the right, you can see me operating one of the manipulators, which is just a priceless experience for me that would be very hard to obtain otherwise. So we can things I had to do was retrieving samples after surfacing of the vehicle, cleaning some parts, some of the moving parts of the vehicle, piloting. I did some piloting. I did some co-piloting. I worked with the manipulators. I also learned the electrical system, hydraulic system. In the center, you can see a through section of the tether. So it was, for me, very exciting to learn all these things firsthand from an experienced crew and really jumpstart my understanding of these systems. It's very valuable to learn from experienced people other than the ones in my team, to kind of broaden your sources and learn from as many inputs as possible. And also, I think it's a huge value in terms of networking. On the next picture, you can see some of the images we took of the underwater life. And then we also collected a lot of samples, which you can see in the bottom center with the manipulator, from the seafloor to be analyzed on the surface for morphology and DNA and such. On the next slide. So this is the end of my presentation. I would like to thank Eurofleets Plus, Vlis, my employer, Noordmar, and the whole benchmark team. This summer we have some deployments of our own ROV system, which you can see on the picture here. And thanks to this training, I feel a lot more confident that I can bring this to a good end. Learning from other people and deploying these systems in the field, in places I otherwise wouldn't deploy them, with other conditions, other challenges, is a very good learning experience.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you for being with us today from Belgium. And now we're going to move again. We're going to go to Italia, to Rome, where we are going to meet Francesco Latino Chiocchi. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
We say. We pronounce. You were a PI during Eurofleet 1 and Eurofleet 2 project. What is the added value of the transnational access gain with the Eurofleet program?
Yeah, I think it's, my experience with Eurofleet is very good, and I think it's a great project, especially because it exposes especially young students to an international environment. Experienced researchers, they usually have international collaboration, but for students to be exposed to interbreed with other students in other realities, I think is something that helps a lot to them. So apart from the scientific achievement, also this educational side of Eurofleet to me is very valuable. So if you want, I can start with my presentation. That is the reason why you put on the screen.
Go on, Francesco, please.
Okay, yes. See, so I will present you the result of these two cruises. One was Eurofleet 1 with some Spanish and Portuguese colleagues in the Azores. So it was very close to the house of the previous presenter. And the other one was with a much broader international group, and that was done with the Atalanta, with the Ifremer Atalanta vessel. And the other one was done with the ACMR Egeo vessel with the more international teams, including people from France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and of course Greece. So if you can move my slide. Okay, so let's start with the Amorgos 56 cruise. My field is mainly my research field is mainly on geohazard. So that was a cruise that was on landslide generated tsunamis. Geohazard is one of the fields in which geology may offer a valuable service to the society, especially in the perspective of the blue economy. And there is just a new position paper of the Marine Board on this this subject. So in 1956, in Greece, the largest earthquake of the 20th century hit the Aegean Sea, and that earthquake was very high. The magnitude was very high, and but the size of the tsunami was anomalously high. They measure more than 20-meter high waves on the coast, and according to all the model that has been done, the earthquake by itself would not been able to generate, and also the distribution of the different aid in the different islands was not explained by the earthquake alone. So research was done about the possible contribute of submarine landslide in generating this tsunami, and in the lower center image you see two sides of big landslide that were hypothesized on the Santorini slope that may justify the aid, but that was not clear at all, and so we proposed this cruise with the Egeo ship, and the knowledge at that moment was very poor, either from bathymetry, seismic, and coding. So next slide. So that is the group of people, the crew, the scientific crew that participate the cruise. You see that we have some 1/3 of students, and mainly we were doing geophysics during the night and sampling during the day. In this picture, we are in Santorini Island, where we start from. Next slide. So those are the data we collected. We collected mainly multi-beam, so a very detailed bathymetry, seismic lines, and gravity course on the seafloor to detect this landslide that possibly contribute to the generation of the tsunami. Next one. So this is just an example. I will just show you a few examples. In the upper right, there is a seafloor core that was coring this mass transport deposit. Are these yellow units? Actually, they're highlighted in yellow, but they're transparent, acoustically transparent. And because of the lead 210, we were able to date that as very recent event, so possibly related to the 1956. Tsunami. Next one. And those are other two. You see that these landslides, however, that you see in the upper left, are very. There is not a single huge big landslide with a single huge scar. There are many landslides at the foot of the very steep slope that are tectonically controlled, either in the Amorgos and in the nearby highlands. So next slide. I will not go into the details, but what we found is that there is and that there are a certain number of a very recent landslide. So that is very different. I mean, there is no big landslide offshore Santorini, as it was hypothesized only on modeling, but also there is no single big landslide. Rather, there are many landslides that appear to be generated in the 56 event or as a first hypothesis, but even the inner geometry of this landslide witness a very complex mechanism. So there is the idea is that we have to explore the possibility that that many landslides generate many tsunamis that interfere among them, and some positive interference may generate in places very high tsunami waves with a very high run-up. So that is extremely interesting, and especially it's very different from what was taught before. So next slide. So coming to the Azores cruise, that started because we were studying an eruption in Pantelleria, that is in Sicily Channel, that occurs at the end of the 1800s. And in that eruption, lava balloons were formed, and these lava balloons are block of basalt with a big cavity inside that give buoyancy to this block of lava. So they're not pumice, but they're real block of lava that are positive positive buoyant because of this cavity inside, and usually they arrive on the surface and then they explode. That was the historical description, and so we did previously some cruise in order to define the site of this eruption. Also because this kind of eruption apparently were very rare. Apart from this Pantelleria 1891, there was only one in Mexico in 93 in Socorro Island, and then one in the Azores in 2000. And so we applied for a cruise to study this eruption that appear to be very similar to the Pantelleria. Next one. Next animation, please. Okay, so this is the eruption that occurred in the Azores. That is near Terceira Island. Is in the Serreta region. That is this submarine ridge offshore, and you see some picture of this lava balloon that were floating at that time. So we went there. Next slide. So we went there with Atlantis ship, and again we performed mainly multi-beam and dredging, because in volcanic island it's difficult to use seismic or gravity coring, even if some gravity core were collected. And we reconstruct in very high detail the northwestern part of the especially the northwest part of the island where the Serreta ridge is located. Next one. Again, I cannot go into detail of what we found about this eruption. However, we were able to locate what is the site of the eruption, that is very similar in size and depth to the Pantelleria 1891 eruption. Even if part of this vent collapsed because it was built exactly on the top of a big apron made up of volcanoclastic material, and so it's that is the result, and also. That is more or less the same story that happened just few years ago in Hierro, or a few years, 10 years ago in Hierro, when another submarine eruption was going on and producing lava balloons. So that is the fourth evidence to witnessing how relevant is the study of this kind of eruption. And next and last, I think, slide. Okay, but apart from the result from the volcanologic point of view, we were also able to reconstruct either the depositional and the tectonic setting of the island, and for example to demonstrate two slightly different tectonic spreading axes of the island, and also working on morphology, we proposed a model. So in the upper right you have the model that we drew on the Atlantis ship. And just below you have what we published then in Bulletin of Volcanology, in which when you have a very thin oceanic crust, you may have a fissural eruption because the magma ascent is very easy. Then you have a transformation going towards a thickening of the volcanic pile until a plumbing system develops, and so the central volcanism may form a big apparatus and then an island. So this is just an example. But again, so from one side we reached the target of the research, but from the other side also we studied in detail this island that was very interesting as part of the oceanic ridge.
Thank you, Francesco. Okay. Maybe one more word about the international relationships. Were they already existing before the cruises, or were they activated for the occasion?
Yes, I mean the international relations already exist before the cruise with some of the group, not with all, but with some of the group, of course, that was strengthened, and that also brought to preparation of proposal for European project, exchange of students, so really integration between as marine geologists or marine scientists, we know that being on a ship together really strengthens the relation. So there is also this human, if you want, aspect that is not secondary, because sharing experience together also strengthens the relationship, again, among the researchers and also among the students. And that is to me, the more, maybe because I'm a university professor, it is the most more relevant part of the story.
Of course, human aspect is very, very important. Thank you very much, Francisco Chiocci, for being with us today. And thank you to all of you for being with us. It was very interesting to have your feedback and what you have been experiencing with the Eurofleet program. In a few seconds, we are going to talk with you, Olivier Lefort. But before, I'd like to continue our walk to discover the European fleets. We will now discover the French one, the French fleet. Take a look at this picture and we'll be right back with you, Olivier, in a few seconds.
Pourquoi pas? Marion Dufresne, Thalassa, Antea, l'Europe, Antédon. Research vessels that scientists journey on for weeks at a time. They weather storms, observe calm seabeds, and collect samples from the marine world. The French oceanographic fleet is one of the largest in the world. Day and night, its 18 ships and 6 underwater vehicles skim across the seas in tireless service of the scientific community. Technological marvels such as the Nautile manned submersible, the Victor 6000 submersible, and the Ulix rover can carry out missions up to 6,000 meters below the water's surface. The French oceanographic fleet boasts cutting-edge technology and one-of-a-kind equipment designed by engineering teams who strive for excellence. Our engineers encourage the audacity to dive deeper, travel farther, and stay at sea longer to learn ever more about the ocean.
Very impressive images. Good morning, Olivier Lefort.
Good morning.
You are the director of the fleet, but you are above all one of the coordinators of Eurofleet Plus working group whose mission was to reflect on the future coordination of European fleets. What is the broad outline of European fleets, and what is the innovative principle that has emerged with transnational access, the benefits of which we have seen through the 3 previous presentations we just had?
Yeah. If you go to the first slide, the European research vessels are costly assets. They are costly to build. Regional vessel, for example, is from 25 million euro, and it can go up to 400 million euro for an icebreaker. They are also costly to operate. Their rate for a large vessel can be up to 50,000 euro per day. That's a huge budget. That explains why all the countries can't own the full assets of vessels on equipment. So these are national assets which are owned and operated by single or multiple national institutions. In the position paper 25, we identified 99 vessels in Europe operated by 62 operators. That's huge. So that's one of the reasons why there are limited joint management in Europe between the fleet operators. And the second reason of that limited joint management is that funding is essentially based on national, on governmental fundings. That is the landscape of the fleets. So the idea of transnational access, next slide please, which was developed under Eurofleets, is that the principle is a group of operators put ship times on underwater rowboats or equipment at the disposal of a central structures, Eurofleets Plus at that time, in charge of managing the access for the scientists. The funding for ship times is provided by European Union, and annual calls for project or cruises are operated by the central structure. So there is a selection of projects through scientific excellence, that's a peer review selection to have very good project on board those costly vessels. Probably the main principle is that calls are open to all European scientists with a reference to their nationality. That's the real novelty of transnational access operated by Eurofleets.
And what was the objective and the vision of the working group whose results you are going to present us now?
Yeah, as said by Eden, the Eurofleets network of operators have secured a budget, next slide please, of around 26 million euro in 3 projects. The actual Eurofleets Plus project will end in 2023. So to date, the funding has enabled 65 transnational access projects. That's around 2 years of activity. On-train more than 150 young marine scientists. So that was a very good impact on the scientific community. So through the Eurofleets Plus project, we have put in place a working group with in charge with colleagues from Norway, the Netherlands, from Italy, from France, in Belgium, and to try to find a solution to perpetuate those achievements through a permanent Eurofleets infrastructure.
And what were you looking for? What was your objective with that?
Our vision is, we believe that cooperation and strengthening of links between the operators of European marine research fleets is a necessity to continue excellent marine research and monitoring in Europe. So we see that given the number of national operators and the often very different national governance mechanisms, it is illusory to think that the fleet integration at the level of Europe is possible in the short or middle term. So we think that the next step for European fleets is therefore to go beyond the current 4-year project system and create a legal structure between national operators to be the permanent coordination system for URB, for transnational access. And we call it Eurofleets RI for research infrastructure.
That's for the vision. What is the structural proposal you've reached with the working group?
We have worked on mission. That's on the next slide. The principal mission is to be the central coordination point for transnational access, as previously said. But that could also be a marketplace for those who offers or demands access to our Earths or LEXs. What we call Earth LEXs are robots, are seismic systems on heavy equipment for charter or what we call barter. That means ship time exchange between operators or to contribute to research, monitoring, or on training. The third point is to be to coordinate sharing on pooling of sophisticated, expensive equipment like large seismics, for example. Mm-hmm. And the fourth mission could be to build up and pilot pre-configuration processes of future common infrastructure like very large seismics, or in the future, if you come back to uninhabited diving, to a common diving system and so on.
Operators are not doing this kind of cruises for themselves. You're not doing it for yourself, no. Obviously,
no.
For the benefits of the European research. What are the expected benefits?
Yeah, the expected benefits, last slide, please. No, next slide. We are at a time of, we are key assets to reach the objective of, for example, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, or as well as for the implementation of the EU mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters. So we think that supporting transnational access on networking through Eurofleets RI allows increase in Europe's contribution to global marine science efforts. For example, promoting access of European scientist teams to vessels on equipment from different countries, as we have seen, shall strengthen the excellence of European marine research. More time at sea means more data collected. On optimizing the deployment of national research vessel fleets in remote areas is crucial. We have seen that some of us go to Azores, for example, but we can also talk of Pacific Ocean or Indian Ocean. On the last but also important point is we have to support young researchers for access to the sea via dedicated calls. That's crucial for the future also.
So we see all the benefit that the different Eurofleets program had for researchers. Now we're going to have the EU point of view, European Union point of view. We're going to meet John Bell. Hi, John Bell. Are you with us? Yes, you are.
Bonjour, Jean-Etienne. Can you hear me?
Of the Healthy Planet Department, head of the EU Healthy Ocean Unit. What did you want to tell to all the researchers we have on the set today from the EU point of view?
Well, good morning. Bonjour à tout le monde de plus année. We're very much supporting your initiative. I think I'd like to start off by setting the context. We enter a decade of decision for our oceans, maybe irreversible decisions, and this decade of decision must become a decade of discovery, and the discovery requires a fit-for-purpose fleet and observation system for something which will move from being used principally by scientists to being part of the public infrastructure of the future in the way that we think about weather forecasting or street lighting on land. So we see your discussions today as being very critical. We have had three successive Eurofleet projects providing major support and opportunities to the European operators of RVs to exchange best practice, increasing operability, coordinating activities with other European initiatives and co-developing joint solutions. And today we're at a critical moment as the One Ocean Summit will confirm that the oceans move to the centre of policy-making decisions, and what we need to support those transitions will very much depend on the outcome of some of the conversations and the projects that you're discussing today. So your projects have given unique access to researchers to access research vessels from other countries. We've seen this morning in the presentations. Based on the excellence of their research projects, Eurofleets has demonstrated not only the feasibility of transnational access, but also that you're delivering, very importantly, very high quality science and optimizing the use of what are in fact very expensive infrastructures. So at the beginning, Jean-Etienne, I just wanted to acknowledge the importance of your proposed initiative, what Olivier was mentioning at the end of his intervention there, to establish a research infrastructure capable of sustaining activities of coordination of European fleets in the long term. You know that we have in Horizon Europe, the European Framework Programme, a specific recognition of the importance of research infrastructures, with a key part of the programme dedicated to supporting large networks of research infrastructures. However, as anticipated by the request to all research infrastructure projects to develop sustainability plans, recurrent EU support to transnational access to a specific class of infrastructure is not envisaged in Horizon Europe. So in order to meet the objectives of the Green Deal, the efforts in research infrastructure programme will go to larger networks of research infrastructures able to deliver access and services to broader scientific fields, or to address challenge-driven scientific needs, such as what Olivier mentioned before, the missions and the partnerships. Now, you're going to hear a lot about the mission to restore our oceans and waters by 2030, which is setting ambitious objectives. It will mobilise significant resources. It will connect up different communities of practice. And we will attempt in this Earthshot to increase the capacity of existing sources of knowledge, such as the marine research infrastructures. The European research infrastructures, and particularly your fleets, can very importantly contribute to the three objectives of the mission: preserving and restoring ecosystems and biodiversity, tackling pollution, and carbon neutrality across our seas and oceans. So research infrastructures and your fleets can play a key role. as to be a main enabler of this mission, one of the main enablers of missions, which consists of developing what is called a digital ocean knowledge system. A key deliverable of the mission, you'll hear more about this in the coming days, Europe will establish an ambitious European digital ocean twin, which would position the EU as a world leader and digital champion of the ocean. The digital twin is designed as a public good open to the world and a key European contribution to the ocean decade. And we'll hear more from people in the coming days as to how this could be put together. But in a sense, it's connecting all the existing systems to give us, in effect, I don't know whether you could call it an inner space station kind of idea, but a four-dimensional complete view of our ocean, its systems, its dynamics and its future evolution, fully connecting observation, monitoring, modelling and discovery to prediction. And to build the digital twin, we need you, the collectors of ocean data, the explorers, to ensure open and unrestricted access to marine data that will flow into the European digital twin infrastructure, to cover known knowledge gaps and to integrate your forecasting and modelling applications to the European digital twin ocean. So it's a very important space, I think, opening up for you to connect into the next generation of capability. Research activities in polar regions will be fundamental also for the implementation of the new European Union Arctic policy, and Eurofleets can play a critical role in facilitating synergies and shared activities. So to meet this new ambition for oceans, we need, as you are proposing, a better integration of effort to meet the ambition. The challenges ahead require systemic approaches and the most efficient use possible of our instruments and budgets, and the kind of predictable investment that will be needed. I think you'd agree we need to avoid the proliferation of bodies with similar tasks. We need somewhat to rationalise the landscape and to ensure synergies with clear roles and responsibilities in the marine observation system. And you are mainly the owners of this marine observation system, so it's important in terms of how you see that. It will also be essential to ensure appropriate overall coordination between the different important initiatives. If you take Eurofleet and other research infrastructures like ARIS, Eurargo, EMSO, EU Marine Robots and so forth, and the big research projects. All of this needs to be factored into reflections on the scope, business plan, and choice of the possible type of legal entity for a future initiative. So perhaps you're considering an ERIC as a possible option, maybe with a wider marine scope and integrated into what's called the S3 process. These are research infrastructure, legal bases integrated into the legal process of S3. I think this is an important consideration for you. Now, the other thing about this is to ensure that these conversations, which are complex enough in themselves, could take place within the emerging Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, where we're trying again to create a space in which it is easy to connect across all of these different critical lines of action. So your Eurofleets community is at a critical crossroads. How are you going to better serve these new priorities, this new ambition for the ocean, this new expectation on your exploration vision, how to sustain transnational access, what is the vision for more coordinated fleets and better integration coordination with complementary observing systems. We have a thing called the European Research Area Policy Agenda, which is the framing of how research is thought about under the European treaties, and it's mainly about connecting up and working with member states to align effort and to ensure that we've more, that the sum is greater than the whole, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And critical to that is an action on research infrastructures with a strategic analysis of the European landscape of research infrastructures and the engagement of stakeholders. It's an important reference point when you're framing in terms of policy the vision that you'd like to take forward. Research fleets will be part of this analysis, and the Eurofleets community will be a key stakeholder as we take this analysis forward. So our ambition for ocean observation, monitoring, discovery, exploration in this decade will need to move to a new and more ambitious level. You've heard that the Ocean Observation Initiative from our colleagues in DG Mare, the department and the commission that works on the marine, which aims to structure, harmonise and make the collection of ocean data by member states more efficient. This is an important initiative that's been supported over the years by many projects. This may provide the framework for you to discuss and hopefully develop a real European initiative for transnational access, for which we would, of course, be supportive. In Eurofleets Plus, specific attention was given to the engagement of industry and to the international dimension. This is essential and must be pursued and deepened. It's critical that we need to connect our oceans with the next economy and with those who are working across the ocean. Science, as we know, is not about walls, it's about building bridges. And borders between research and market players must be lowered if we want our solutions to be deployed. The demonstrated added value of EU transnational access must be replicated again and building on the great achievements you have at international level. You know that we're trying to work together with the science and research community to create an all-Atlantic Ocean Alliance and an all-Atlantic Ocean Research Community. It's a greater ambition. It needs greater access and greater cooperation. This has been clearly recommended by the projects that you've been connected with on the Atlantic Observation Atlantis project and AORAC. And current efforts in the All-Atlantic Joint Action MARINET, the All-Atlantic Marine Research Infrastructure Network, should be pursued and enlarged. It's going in the right direction. It needs to be encouraged. So the upcoming All-Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Declaration, which we hope to endorse in the United States this summer, should be instrumental in this regard. Again, in setting a new level of ambition, in convening those of you who work together in this very challenging space, and to allow strong engagement of all of our Atlantic partners. So the most welcome part of my remarks is usually when I conclude. So I will conclude with three takeaway messages. So first, you need to hear our very strong overall support to the work that you're doing, to its centrality to the ambition for giving us the means to support what the ocean needs from us in this decade of discovery, to the establishment of an initiative, maybe an entity, dealing with the coordination of the EU research vessel fleet, particularly in view of contributing to the integration of marine observation and the digital knowledge landscape for a more efficient, harmonised and coordinated system. And hopefully you'll do this working closely within the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership community. Secondly, I would ask you to get involved strongly with the mission. Take ownership of it. It's not a project or a program. It's something which needs to be co-created by the whole ocean community. How can we achieve these ends by the end of the decade? And how can you bring your infrastructure and exploration talents and teams into that? And what can it do to help you? As your fleets are key to deliver on the restoration of our ocean and waters by 2030, the last chance I think that we have to do so. And last but not least, I ask you to continue to be a leader in the internationalization of the system and to grasp the opportunities offered in particular by the All-Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance and the new ambition that you will set out this summer. And I thank you very much. My apologies if I appear a little bit hurried, but I need to make sure that I get to Brest by late this afternoon because it's a very important event happening there around the sun. Merci Olivier, à bientôt tout le monde. Et meilleurs vœux pour la vision que vous êtes en train d'élaborer ensemble. Merci à tous et à toutes.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you for these words in French too. We noticed that your point of view, the EU point of view. Thank you and have a good day. Before meeting our next guest, I suggest you to leave Europe for a few seconds and to go to New Zealand. It's Rob Christie who will take us there. He's the only non-European operator in Eurofleet. So let's go to New Zealand right now and we will be back in Brest right after.
My name is Rob Christie. I'm manager for marine resources at NIWA and we're on board RV Tangaroa. The vessel is really unique to New Zealand. She's 70 metres long, ice capable, equipped with innovative technologies, operates around New Zealand coastal waters, throughout New Zealand's EEZ through to the Ross Sea, South Pacific Ocean and Southwest Indian Ocean. RV Tangaroa is the only vessel in the Southern Hemisphere that belongs to the Eurofleet project. This opens up the science within our region to European scientists and transnational scientists as well.
Good morning, Rob Christie, or should I say good night for you in New Zealand?
Bonjour. Yep, it's a bit late here, but happy to join you, and thanks for including us in your forum.
Thank you for being with quite late at night in New Zealand. We are going to see with you that this world tour around what Eurofleet could bring to different scientists. You are a manager for NIWA's marine resources in New Zealand. New Zealand is a fairly isolated, let's say, country geographically on the other side of the world. What motivated you to join the Eurofleet Plus project and offer European scientists access to your vessel, which is called Tangaroa?
That's it, yep. Yeah. Well, firstly, I'd like to congratulate the founding members of Eurofleet for an excellent initiative and thank our European friends for letting us participate. So to answer your question, it's all about strengthening cooperation between New Zealand and Europe, and this is beneficial for all. Collaborative science projects have many benefits, not to name a few: the efficiency of the asset use, the reduced CO2 footprint, the hybridization of science expertise, and the consequential magnification of impact of science. You get a lot of different scientists on board. You're just going to get better results by that synergy and hybridization of them working together. Further, the access to and learn from the work packages that Eurofleets provides. So there's several work packages that you work on, and they're highly innovative, and we learn a lot from them, and hopefully we add a bit to them as well. And that enables us to fast-track ocean science innovation. You deal with industry. Somebody mentioned dealing with industry in the past. That helps us reach our goals more efficiently, both as NIWA and also as a sort of an ocean collective of research vessels. So, yeah, great. It's a win-win for science in Europe, and it's a win-win for science in New Zealand.
Eurofleet could progress in the future.
I was thinking about it the other day, and a really sort of left field but recent example is that the recent volcano eruption in Tonga. If Eurofleets had a rapid, a rapid assessment grant sort of process, it would allow researchers from Europe to come down to New Zealand, get on board, and go out to assess, the effects of the impacts of volcano. So hopefully in the future there will be some sort of, I know that NSF have the same sort of grant funding, but it'd be great to see that we can sort of get quick reaction for scientists on the ground, monitoring and measuring impact of the benthic community around the volcano, impact to fisheries, and help Tonga in reacting to the eruption. So yeah, it's a bit of a left field one, but it'd be great to see that.
And Rob, how do you think Eurofleets benefits a New Zealand scientist?
I think sort of going back to answering the first question is that it's the synergy of taking European scientists, their projects, the PIs, putting them together, and there's no doubt that it improves and magnifies the effect of the science and the outputs by putting all the different capabilities together. So that collaborative effort is is fantastic for us down on the other side of the world, and hopefully we can then impart our knowledge to European scientists, having local scientists down here.
And we can see that you can go further, cultural and scientific synergies. Thank you very much, Rob Christie, for being with us today. And we are now going to come back to Europe and go to Italy with Fabio Trincardi. Good morning, Fabio. Can you hear me? You are the director of the Earth System Science and Environmental Technology in CNR Italy. Are you with us, Fabio?
Yes. I forgot to switch the mic. Sorry, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
CNR is an historical actor of Eurofleet 1 and Eurofleet 2 and Plus project. What are the reasons for this, and what are the benefits that you retained, Fabio?
Well, there are many benefits. If from the point of view of my country and of my organization, the National Research Council of Italy, we went through several years of very big difficulties, having lost our major ship. So it was very important to have access to larger ships to go to the ocean through competitive proposals. And we hope that in the near future this situation will change and we will go back to have a big ship as well as many other countries. If I can say on this slide, the importance of the Mediterranean, this tiny little basin, which is only 1%, less than 1% of the global ocean. The point is it is a basin bridging between the Far East and the Atlantic, and very much impacted by the blue economy, sometimes also in negative ways. We are transited by 25% of the global traffic. The basin is heavily polluted because of the way the catchment is set up. And in fact, we received 7% of the global mismanaged plastic garbage. It is overfished. There is a lot of pressure from tourism. Tourism is important, bringing a lot of money, but it's not very well managed. And the Mediterranean is also a major hotspot for global warming. And since the 80s, our observatories in the deep show that at the surface we have half a degree per decade of increasing temperature, and in the deep a quarter of a degree per decade. So there are many things to study in the area. Can I go on very quickly okay, this if you can enter again. So having lost our Urania major ship some 6 years ago, we concentrated on a lot of coastal work. And with only a regional ship that doesn't even show up in the slide. So the largest ship for some 6 years was only 35 meters long. It's called Dalla Porta. And so if you can move also to the next slide, as I said, beyond okay, I already said this, so if you can move, please. Another major effort that the National Research Council is making in liaison with our friends in Spain and in France is to manage this, contribute to this Central Mediterranean observing system and putting together all sorts of observations. And, we have the oceanographic tower in front of Venice because of all our high water problems there. And we have a lot of relocatable moorings. We cooperate on glider lines on the west, and we have a lot of stations that are operated continuously since the 80s, and they are very important to quantify not only the fact that the temperature of the basin is increasing dramatically, but also the water levels are becoming saltier, and this is also having an effect on the outflow to the rest of the Atlantic. Okay, if we can move to the very last one. No, this is so go back because, can you go back, please? You charged an old presentation. The whole point I want to make, I put it on this slide, is that CNR has now put a major effort in the new budget beginning in 2022. And we are going to acquire a major ship again. And through this ship, which will be an ocean-going vessel with Arctic capabilities, we hope we will be able to cooperate in Eurofleet Plus and in the future of Eurofleet in a better way, and offering opportunities to exchange instruments and to have, we will be based mostly in the Mediterranean, but not uniquely in the Mediterranean. And so we will be in the position to fully exploit and better contribute to the Eurofleet strategy. An important point, which is new compared to the past, this new CNR ship will be shared with the entire Italian community through a system of open calls. So there are about 30 universities in Italy that work in marine science, and we decided that we will operate the ship and based on the quality of the proposals, the ship will not be used only by CNR as it was in the past, but by the entire community. This, I hope, is going to strengthen the scientific level in Italy and in all fields of marine science. And the other point is that we will work in open data, and whoever will have access to the ship will have to share his data since the very end of the cruise.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabio. Thank you for all this. And we are going to move to Jan Mess, General Director of Flams Institute for the Z. Sorry, I do apologize for the pronunciation. Previously, you were chairman of the European Marine Board. Good morning, Jan. Are you with us?
Morning. I'm with you.
What does Vlies see in new opportunities of embarking on other research flight vessels beside the Belgian one? And is there not enough capacity? Can we say that?
Well, there is not enough capacity. Belgium is a very small country. We have a state-of-the-art coastal research vessel. And last week we saw, we're very proud to see at the Belgian federal level that the new Belgica, an ocean-going regional vessel, came into operation. But we do have a very lively multidisciplinary marine research community in the country that are heavily involved in international marine science programs, ocean observations, contributing to the European and global goals of ocean science. And for that, we need access to a larger fleet than that we can manage nationally. So indeed, there is an undercapacity for our scientists to go at sea. And we, as a small country, highly benefit from access to the European research fleet, if we can call it that way.
Would you anticipate that the Belgian marine seagoing research infrastructure is appealing enough to be requested by foreign scientists?
Yes, I think so. The Global Ocean Science Report of the IOC made an inventory of the marine research capacity in different countries around the globe, and Belgium came out quite well. So we have a very high density of marine researchers of all disciplines in the country, and that's expertise that we can offer to the European and international and global community. And besides that, of course, there are not only the research vessels, but also the associated infrastructure. You heard Roland de Velter earlier, one of our early career engineers, who briefly introduced our robotics center. These are recent state-of-the-art investments in marine robotics that can be put at the disposal of the European researchers and beyond Europe, of course, to make this general concept of a European research fleet a large infrastructure at the European level, more populated with not only with hardware, but also with capacities, well-trained, continuously developed marine technicians and researchers.
Thank you very much, Jan. Have a good day in Belgium, and let's say that Belgium is a small but beautiful country. And to conclude now, we are going to look to the future and try to figure out what could be next with you, Jean-Marie Flo. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're chair of the SFRI Strategy Working Group on Environment. In which way, Jean-Marie, an European fleet would promote the scientific excellence in Europe? And also, what would be the pan-European relevance of the project?
Thank you very much. Well, the two questions are more or less linked, but it's obvious that for the scientific excellence, you need to have an excellent logistic system to go to the ocean and so on. And each country has its own fleet, but in fact, none of the European countries can go all over the oceans because you have the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, not forgetting seas like Mediterranean Sea. If not, Italy is going to kill me. And so you need the European fleet, that's clear. And the European relevance is linked to that as well. Not to forget that some countries have icebreakers, other countries don't have icebreakers, but these countries don't have a fleet going in the open ocean. So a European system linking all those national fleets will be really great.
So it's very important. Could you give us some example of the socio-economic impact of a European fleet?
Well, I can give examples, but it's open. The point we have seen already that we discussed about ROVs and going under the sea and so on, or new vessels as well. And it's clear that given the political situation in the world, the new vessel will be, open quotes, greener vessels. This has already been done by Ifremer because the French Oceanographic Fleet for Research has a green label, but in the future it is clear that new improvements in engines and so on will be needed to make the fleet greener, I would say.
Have you estimated the number of potential users? And could you say a few words about the user strategy and the access policy?
Well, users are scientists, obviously. Plus
we had a lot today.
We have got a lot today, plus students. Don't forget about the students, because they are the future of the research in oceanography. So, and that's not easy. It has been proved during the last 2 years, because of the COVID situation, it has been a disaster for the students. They could not attend, go on the boats because of the safety and health regulation, and that's really bad. But the COVID situation is going to be over. I'm always optimistic. So that's the point. The access, it has to be based either on scientific excellence or education. Scientific excellence, well, that's as well was already discussed by Eurofleet. You have a committee selecting projects and so on. It's more difficult for students, but well, the universities are involved. It's mainly a university job, and they have to make good projects for students, and then they can go and attend, and go on the vessels.
And we hope that students can go on vessels, because this is the future of research, of course. Thank you very much, Jean-Marie Flo. Thank you very much, Aidan Fitzgerald. Thank you, Olivier Lefort, for hosting us today here. Thanks also to all our participants from all over the world for being with us today. This is the end of our live. I want to thank you also for watching us today. And if you want to know more about all what we said, you can go on the Eurofleet website. I wish you a very good day. See you later.